So, Monster High is back. You know, that series of goth dolls that featured children of classic monsters going to high school? Because for some reason toy companies love romanticizing the most traumatic time of any teenager's life? Yeah, it's back, and I bet you didn't even know it left. I remember these things basically conquering the world a decade ago. They were the next big toy. Every preteen girl had to have at least a dozen of them, and come the holiday season, their moms would gladly machine gun down anyone who stood in their way at Target. I myself remember braving blinding blizzards to track down even one of those Draculoras as a Christmas present for a family member, which I ultimately failed to do. Alright, in all seriousness, it's a cute, harmless idea for a franchise that did offer a lot of creativity with what they could do with the idea. Obviously, I never got into the line, but my sister did, so I know enough about the toys, the show, the movies, the games, and pretty much everything else the actual monsters at Mattel assembled in their own evil labs and released to rampage across the world. I mean, it's not like I've ever had a compulsion to collect the latest fad. And hey, I respect them for going for a more outgoing, independent girl with personality look for their toys, compared to the cynical vapidness of a Bratz doll. Or Barbie's I don't care if you say you work at the McDonald's, you clearly consider yourself above eating at one. It's an aesthetic I've seen on a lot of different doll lines since it launched in 2010. Heck, even My Little Pony had to jump on the bandwagon to stay relevant. The second most popular girls' toy line next to Barbie had to anthropomorphize its characters to keep making that moolah. That was the haunting power this monstrous line held over the toy market. But everything has to come to an end sometime. After a sales slump in 2016 that led to a disastrous reboot and redesign, Monster High closed its doors for good in 2018. But this year, they made a comeback. With new dolls, new products, a new TV show, even a clothing line. But the standout of the revival, or at least the latest most reacted to Halloween film next to Rob Zombie's The Munsters and, well, Halloween, is the franchise's first live-action movie. And, in the interest of also staying relevant, I realize I also need to hop on the bandwagon if I'm going to retain a healthy viewer count. And hey, as someone on the outside looking in, who's never sat through a complete Monster High project, this might be my opportunity to learn more about the franchise as a whole. So, sit back, relax, get your yearbook ready to make some memories, and let's have a ghoulishly fun time with the live-action Monster High movie.
Oh, great! How are we gonna take over the universe if we can't even operate the thing?
They would kill their brains out through their nose. Okay. Oh, thanks.
We stimulated Norm. The values would have changed.
Well, that was different. I guess I'm just out of tune with what the 8 to 12 female demographic wants to see these days. Though it was interesting seeing them experiment with the 4:3 ratio again, when 18:9 is becoming the norm. Alright, if you haven't caught on yet, I'm BSing you. This isn't the 2022 musical featuring live-action portrayals of Mattel's popular toy line. It turns out that there's another, completely unrelated, live-action Monster High movie, made almost 4 decades ago, when the creators were probably still unironically playing with their own dolls. If you've never heard of it, well, you're not alone. Information on this movie is frustratingly hard to come by. Its Wikipedia page is as bare bones as it gets, with not even a cast list or poster as of this writing, and any other search just leads me back to the more popular toy line it shares a name with. Even the IMDb trivia page is comprised almost solely of pointing out character names and affirming that, indeed, this has nothing to do with Mattel's Monster High. I can't even find a trailer. All I've been able to find out is that it was released in December of 1989, and tanked hard with critics in the box office. To the point, it was only released on home media recently. And good luck finding a DVD hiding in between all the other Monster High movie listings on eBay. I myself wouldn't have known this movie existed if I didn't find a copy by chance at a local thrift store. But hey, even if it's not one of the most talked about movies of the month based on a multi-billion-dollar brand of gothic dolls, I'm sure we could still make this work. After all, this channel is all about obscure media, and we've sung to incredible lows before, so this movie should fit right in. So, grab your biology textbooks, your number 2 pencils, and your sports jackets with the name of the school team emblazoned on the back, keep a copy of the Necronomicon on standby, and let's all attend the late 80s version of Monster High. Okay, no. No. I'm sorry. No. I thought I could keep up the cheerful facade at least until I got the plot summary out of the way, but I can't. I can't make this movie sound good, or interesting, or coherent, or fun, or anything. I mean, I saw the reviews, some clips, I knew that the movie was going to be bad, but in that cheesy 80s way where, hey, it didn't go over well with its original audience, but now it's seen as a kind of nostalgic fun. This is the decade that brought us Xanadu, Staying Alive, and Masters of the Universe, all critical and or commercial flops that have amassed massive cult followings today. If there's one thing the 80s knew how to do, it was to make even its worst films look good. This movie broke me. Me, the guy who talks about crap like Intermedio or Freak Show for a living. I cannot begin to tell you just how wrong this movie is. But I guess I have to try, so for everyone who hasn't clicked over to another video by this point, here is me trying, and likely failing, to coherently summarize my thoughts on the movie. You know, besides the thoughts that are currently screaming, "Burn with fire! Destroy any comedy that exists and find every single person involved in this movie and shit!" Okay, let's get on with this while it's still Halloween. For everyone waiting for a plot summary of this movie, what plot? Okay, I guess if you dig through the layers upon layers of disgusting detritus that makes up the multitude of the runtime, you'll find some kind of story behind these events. And you'll feel dumber for it. Somewhere across the galaxy, there's an alien planet, I think, that decides when other civilizations will experience the apocalypse. But Alien Harold and Lloyd here steal a literal doomsday device and somehow end up on Earth. Yeah, I don't know if they meant to come here, or how they got here, or anything. But they crash in front of a high school and they activate the weapon, which turns out to be an actual person. Someone I can only describe as 80s Kurt Russell if he was at the receiving end of the football from the Brady Bunch movie. That was probably thrown at him by Elton John for swiping his wardrobe. So they literally wake up the weapon, yeah, he has a bed and one of those alarm clocks with comedic vague timestamps on the face, and then just dicks off to dick around. Again, literally, but we'll get back to that. Oh, and he knocks out the aliens for a few hours, and when they wake up, they don't know he was the weapon, so they spend most of the movie searching for whoever stole it. And there's your story. Okay, there's also something about some high school students finally noticing something weird is going on around their school, and the good-looking loser has the hots for the exchange student, and no, that's it. And I hope you're grateful for that summary, because this is what I had to sit through to get even that much.
Was that fast enough for you?
Not even close. You're demon dust.
The report you requested, sir.
Sweet thing.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. A comedy that thinks the way to be funny is to throw everything it can at the screen and hope something sticks. It thinks it's a screwball comedy or a live-action cartoon, kind of like What's Up Doc or Who's That Girl or She's Funny That Way, with a bit of surrealist humor a la Mel Brooks or Monty Python. And hey, those are all funny movies. Some of them are even some of my favorites. But Monster High is one of those movies on crack. Every minute, there's something screaming or flashing or getting destroyed, all while people make these big expressions or try out for the ministry of silly walks, and it just becomes sensory overload. The Magic Voyage, an actually animated film, wishes it could be as loud and obnoxious as this movie. Look, I love fast-paced humor just as much as slower comedies, maybe even more. For a time, I even tried my hand at slapstick short films. But even in movies with rapid-fire humor, where it's obvious they're more concerned with telling jokes than developing characters or plot, every once in a while they'll stop to breathe. Let the joke sink in and set up the next round of gags to spitfire at the audience. Even with movies like Airplane or Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which are surreal farces from beginning to end, they'll let a scene play out. Milk the comedic potential of a joke for as long as they can. Maybe even give a funny exchange that requires their audience to think about how funny it is. Even Jane White is Sick and Twisted, for as much as I bashed it for thinking name-dropping movies and TV is an entire joke, took some time out to develop some of its scenes. There was a style, an attempt to let the absurdity of the situation resonate with the viewers. Not a successful one, but still one I could recognize. For most, if not all of its runtime, this movie is just a barrage of stuff happening. Like taking all the random cartoon transitions from Cool World and making that the whole film. From beginning to end, this movie is 98.5% noise.
There's one thing I hate. All that noise.
And if the screaming and random cartoon sound effects don't already make your ears bleed, the soundtrack will finish the job. Somebody got a synthesizer keyboard for Christmas and, well, to their credit, they can play it. But that means the score is composed entirely by a synthesized orchestra that really doesn't fit a movie. Thankfully, only half the movie has music, but when it plays, it's horribly distracting, and just reminds me of early DOS adventure games I could be playing instead.
Okay.
But for scenes where the music isn't drowning out the rest of the audio, you'll wish it was drowning out the rest of the audio. Since this is a comedy, they decided to give the alien terrorists comical voices. By which I mean they raised their vocal pitch to the point Alvin and the Chipmunks sounds like James Earl Jones.
Hi, thanks for coming on such short notice. Here's what I need you to do.
Oh, I hate traveling on metaphysical planes. I always get more sickness.
Fine, stay here and you'll never get sick again.
Oh, great. We steal a doomsday device and then somebody steals it from us.
You've got your penis and your prostate and your ovary. You got your fimbriae and your scrotum sac. And if your hymen is gone, it ain't coming back.
And yet as bad as their voices are, the one for the villain is worse. For him, they went the final sacrifice route and drastically lowered the pitch. And the result is such a muffled mess, sometimes I can't even make out what he's saying.
Did anyone ever teach you to knock? Boy, what I mean is today is the end of the world. It's the end of the millennium. Time has come. On the cosmic scale, boy, we go to the
But the topper of annoyance is the disembodied narrator that just pops up at random points in the movie. The idea is that we're watching a compilation of events detailing the escape of Mr. Armageddon presented in video format to this alien boss guy. So every so often, we'll get some lady talking over the footage, telling what we, the audience, either already know or what we could have figured out in 5 seconds. It's worse than those long-spoken introductions from other really bad movies, and the most patronizing element I've seen since that Santa Claus movie MST3K featured. No, the other one. The one nobody remembers for a reason. And, like that movie, it never shuts up.
In computer sciences, Egbert Hoser, his joystick in hand, was hard at it.
Yeah, I have eyes. I can see what's going on.
The only thing occupying Norm's little brain was the thought of having sex for the first time with someone other than himself.
Why would I ever want to know that?
Mr. Armageddon had just gotten his wake-up call. He decided not to destroy Doom and Gloom, but instead to freeze-dry their brains for possible use later.
Lady, are you paid by the word? The Thief and the Cobbler didn't have this much superfluous narration.
To understand Doom and Gloom's ineptness, keep in mind that they were not bred to be fighters. A French foreign exchange student who, according to locker room gossip, had yet to add the word no to her English vocabulary. Mel was not the only student having bad dreams. Poor Betty was about to meet her worst nightmare. In fact, on their home planet, they were a third-rate song and dance act. Upon seeing Candace, Mr. Armageddon once again attempted to seduce her with his personal charm. After feeding time, Mr. Gigo led his class on a tour of the school basement. The basketball team bounced their balls as Coach Parks cheered them on. Mr. Armageddon sat sucking on a cocktail as Norm stumbled into...
Shut up! I can't stand it anymore! Why won't he stop?
And you may have noticed that a couple times I said aliens. Yes, the main villains are aliens. Even the movie's title is a lie. We don't get any of the classic monsters invading the school, nor even any original monsters made up for the movie. Okay, later we get some creatures, but even those could be considered aliens or alien constructs, so yeah, they're aliens. I guess Alien High didn't have the same ring to it, but why even make them aliens? You could have just as easily had the alien boss scenes take place in hell, or the center of the earth. Just call the aliens evil albino mole people or something, and Mr. Armageddon Satan. Why not? This movie has as much to do with monsters as Troll 2 had to do with trolls. Even the Monster High dolls didn't have to resort to aliens for any of their characters. The Monster High dolls resorted to an alien as one of their characters. Wow, no wonder this line went defunct. I guess there are some things I can give praise for. This is an 80s movie, before the direct-to-video market really caught on. So if a movie wanted to make some money, it actually had to look like a movie. As such, the camera work is pretty impressive. Okay, not groundbreaking or experimental, but competent. They know how to frame a shot. They know how to track an actor. They know where to position a camera to get that weird, surreal feeling for those weird, surreal scenes. I especially appreciate the Dutch angles and overhead tilted shots for these otherworldly long haul sequences. I can tell there was a lot of setup for these shots. And after having to sit through the billionth movie in a row that looks like it was filmed during an earthquake, this might as well be Baby Driver for how much work they put into making watching the movie possible. However, even in the 80s, we're still not safe from the scourge that is shaky cam. Meh, I'll take 80s shaky cam over 2000 shaky cam any day. The set designs are pretty good. Okay, this is a lower budget project, so we're not going to see the fantastical production values most 80s sci-fi and fantasy is famous for. But the movie does manage to create convincing, recognizable, and otherworldly worlds with what they have. The school does look like a school. And not just a school they had to film in after hours, keeping careful not to ruin or misplace anything since there's class in the morning, but a building they have free range in. Something they can mess up, spruce up, make look like however they want to sell the tone of the scene. And with all the extras wandering the halls, it feels like it takes place at a real high school. Horrible repressed memories and everything. Now, while the movie doesn't have the money for lavish otherworldly sets, it carefully utilizes a combination of smoke, crowded areas, and the negative space around the actors and objects to draw the audience's attention to where it needs to be. These scenes may have just been shot in one small studio barely large enough to accommodate the cast and crew, but thanks to how different they all look from one another, each given simple yet unique aesthetics, they all look like different locations that may be 60 feet or 600 miles wide. I definitely get a Terry Gilliam's Brazil feel from some of these scenes. If it was a high school musical production, but I appreciate the effort nonetheless. Even the effects are handled well. We get some pretty impressive makeup and costume work for the aliens, including some good prosthetics and passable rubber monsters. I'm especially impressed with the build and puppeteering for this giant plant monster, and the literal wire work for this one kill shot. Seriously, this could not have been easy to pull off. Actually, most of the kill shots are pretty impressive. We have things getting squished, people getting run over, getting their heads impaled by poles, being vaporized, getting ripped in half by a mummy, even death by oversized condom. But my favorite death has to be a guy straight up exploding out of his shoes, as blood and gore fly everywhere. Nowadays, a lot of these effects would be replaced with hugely unconvincing stock CGI, if the crew even had the time or budget to show them happening. But because they put in the effort to actually show it, I can appreciate the fact that it's there. Sure, it's obviously fake, but as I've said before, I'll take the fakest of practical effects over the fakest of digital work. Speaking of, even the digital effects look pretty good. We get some pretty well graphics computer programs designed specifically for this movie, as well as some surprising computer corruption effects at one point. There's even not that bad a green screen effect where this guy pokes his finger into the computer screen. Remember, this was 1989 when studios were only just starting to realize the potential of computer-generated imagery for movies. And yeah, okay, even for the time, there was much better technology being utilized in mainstream movies. But for a low-budget, low-attention movie such as this, I'm impressed they had the innovation to use what they had. And the control not to base their entire movie around it. Oh, and look at that! Lasers and vaporizing effects. They went the full Star Wars with this project. Oh, and what's this? Guns that actually flash? Squibs that violently explode? Electronics that burst into a cloud of sparks? I know I shouldn't be obsessing over the bare minimum expected of a theatrical movie, but after sitting through so many Z-grade movies that are ripe fodder for the satellite of love to tear apart, it feels so good to watch a movie that, yeah, is technically on the same level, but is the best looking movie I've reviewed in quite a while. My standards are rock bottom, I know. Now, if by this point you're thinking, hey, this doesn't look that bad, I can live with the issues you brought up if it means getting a decent low-budget monster movie I can laugh at, don't. There will be no laughing at this movie. Yeah, I'm done being nice. I've put it off for long enough. Now it's time to talk about the movie's worst element. It's comedy. Now, I already went over just how annoying and disjointed the overall humor is, but the individual jokes literally cause me pain. Mostly in the brain, because most of the jokes in this movie make no sense. I think the reason why the humor is so rapid fire is because they forgot to write context for most of it, so they spew it out too fast for anyone to comprehend it. Here's literally the first spoken joke in the movie.
Picture in your mind the farthest point in the universe. Our story begins just a couple of blocks past that.
It's funny because you don't use blocks to measure space. Then the very next joke is introducing the head honcho monster alien guy through a long nameplate. Because now long names are funny. Look, this joke worked in Monty Python because of the absurd amount of titles the Doctor gave himself. To the point it stretched around the room and his clients had to lift it up to get to his desk. This is just saying it's funny because he has a long and ridiculous name. One that is never spoken, therefore nothing is ever done with it. Something else Monty Python also pulled off spectacularly. Then the next joke is also just listing stupid names. And that's a good chunk of what the movie considers funny, just names and puns. The two alien terrorists are named Doom and Gloom. The movie takes place at Montgomery Sterling High School, which, yeah, even the DVD case has to spell out. And almost every single human character's name is a pun. Which, hey, maybe this movie does have more in common with the dolls than I gave it credit for. The bland main boyfriend character is Norm Median. The hot girlfriend is Candace Kane. The pothead is O.D. Then there's Egbert Hoser, Miss Anthrope, John Doe, Michael Angelo, Auto Parts. I'm sorry, is this a movie or a Carmen Sandiego game from the 90s? Names are not funny unless you make them funny. Like, what if just one of these characters had a weird name, and they're constantly mocked for it, but they're completely oblivious as to why? That would be funny because they're giving the wrong reaction. Or go the South Park route and give someone a funny name which everyone makes a pun out of, not realizing that the name is already a pun. That would be funny because they misunderstand the joke. But no, it's just these people have ridiculous names, and that's the whole joke. One they stretch out well past its breaking point with this yearbook montage played over the opening credits, which also includes a ripoff of the Monster Mash that sounds like someone singing karaoke over a demo played on their electronic keyboard.
Mankind's losing, blood is oozing, and when he's finished, he'll go cruising.
Yes, life's a bitch, 'cause we're all going to die at Monster High.
And that's about as comprehensible as the humor gets, because most of the other jokes are just, something happens. This one guy gives a weird oral report on mummification. Okay. This guy's playing a game where he's a penis shooting Bibles and nipples. Okay. For a second, Norm takes over as the narrator.
You know that saying, he who hesitates is lost?
I hate that saying.
Okay. And for 2 scenes, there's a band. That's the joke. There's suddenly a band in this movie. They don't say anything, they don't play anything. Some people just mention that the band is here. I'm sorry, why is any of this funny? What is the context? What is the payoff? Where did any of this come from? It's like if someone showed me a picture of a duck, then got really mad at it and burst out laughing. It's a duck. The whole joke is that it's a duck. Heck, the fact I keep saying duck is probably funnier than me trying to comprehend why I'm supposed to laugh at a duck. Duck, 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 duck. Waddle, 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 waddle. And that's this movie. If it's not puns, it's just showing random stuff and expecting to get uproarious laughter. And how could this movie misunderstand humor so badly when it's directed by the person behind such comedic classics as Playboy Women of Enron and the writers of Out of Sight, Out of Mind and The Hunt for the Trump Tapes? I'm starting to see the problem here. Even when they do have a joke with setup, it's setup that ruins the joke. The aliens are shooting at Candy, and she closes the door. The aliens try to get in, but the door is stuck. So the obvious punchline is that the door opens the other way, which, yeah, could have gotten a slight chuckle from me if they just did that. But no, after they fail to open the door, they have to call a temp worker who just starts pounding the door with her ass until they finally realize the door opens outward. And from beginning to end, this joke takes 5 minutes to complete, during which time there are so many cuts to other things, I kind of forgot there was something that was happening. I'm sorry, but in order for this to be funny, it either had to be a lot shorter or a lot longer, with a lot of other attempts to open the door before they realized the obvious. Want another example? One of the characters in the movie, Mel Anoma, is having trouble sleeping, so he keeps dozing off and having crazy dreams. So he's in class, he's ordered to answer a question, and it suddenly turned into a bondage fantasy. But then he wakes up, tries to turn off his alarm clock, and it's actually the teacher's head. Then he wakes up again, everything seems normal, and class goes on, until he opens his book and is attacked by a creature. And then he wakes up again. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty funny, and one of the few jokes that's paced well. But then they ruin it by making it a running gag, where the guy is constantly killed and constantly wakes up in bed, despite how he couldn't possibly be dreaming because they're clearly events that are actually happening that other characters are interacting with. They try to have a payoff at the end of the movie, but no, it was ruined as soon as they made it a running joke. And with this movie's humor, I'm surprised they didn't make a Freddy Krueger reference. Actually, that would have been hilarious. I'll even take Sleepstalker at this point. And then there are obvious opportunities for jokes that they don't take advantage of. They set this one guy up as the rich upper-class snob from every high school movie, who's killed off and zombified pretty early on. Okay, so the joke is that he's going to be the rich upper-class snob from every high school movie, but he's also going to be a zombie. So he'll do the traditional something obnoxious and petty every couple scenes, but then follow it up by eating someone, like his girlfriend or his cronies, or just having parts of himself fall off and be constantly reattached. All while he and his friends are so up their own ass, they're completely oblivious to what's happening. Okay, you know what? There's potential there. Playing off the stereotypical rich bully trope, but giving it a darkly humorous spin. I like it. They don't do that. No, we'll just see him sometimes wandering through the school, sometimes munching down on random flesh, and slowly decomposing, like a less funny Edgar from Men in Black. He doesn't even get a line, just a really awkward scene where he munches on the same girl 3 times in 3 different takes. Come on, are you telling me nobody wanted an 80s version of My Boyfriend's Back? Did anyone want the 90s version of My Boyfriend's Back? And then there are just more jokes with no context. At one point, they're wandering around in the basement, where some of them are picked off one by one when they walk past the door. And Norm says they're being picked off alphabetically, which could have been funny, but we don't know the names of the previous people, so this has no meaning. And they all just barge in to find nothing, so that went nowhere. At another point, they set a mummy on fire, don't ask. Then Paul here comes in to see what's going on. And then his shoes are suddenly on fire, even though they just put the fire out. They spray his shoes off, so he puts them in the microwave to dry, which I'm pretty sure can't happen, despite a label saying never to microwave them. So he puts them on and explodes, which again is kind of funny. But then a monster grows out of the shoes. What?
This doesn't make a lick of sense.
And then we have this scene. And no, the editing doesn't make any of this make any more sense. Hell, it just makes this movie more of a headache to get through. Just watch this sequence and keep in mind, I made no cuts. Hell, the editing's so hyperactive, it'll cut off the soundtrack at points. Thankfully, the movie does start to slow down around the 30-minute mark and let us actually take in what's going on. But don't think for a second it starts to make any more sense. Because Norm meets Mr. Armageddon in a back hallway somewhere and becomes his prophet to tell everyone they're doomed. All while Armageddon's at this random mini bar watching TV and drinking a fruity drink. Then Paul falls down a very deep pit in the floor that just somehow appears, but survives somehow and crawls out. And then there's an earthquake. Then Norm gets in an argument with some nerds about the end of the world, who are then electrocuted by a teacher who had his head replaced with a computer. And at some point, Norm and Armageddon play baseball with fireballs and a signpost and if the editing and ever-present narration weren't annoying enough, they'll also intersperse the movie with scenes of the alien boss that, like the narration, were clearly edited in later and have no relation to the rest of the movie. The boss doesn't even comment on the footage half the time. He's just there. He eats snails, he humps a random woman, he drums along to the soundtrack. And all of this could have been cut out and we'd never notice. He kinda bookends the movie in a horribly tacked on ending because I guess the distributor didn't like how it originally ended. But otherwise, like the rest of the humor, it's just random scenes of random stuff that's supposed to be funny because he sounds like Christopher Walken.
I'm looking at a report that says the destruction of the Earth has been postponed. Explain it. Armageddon. You look like a hemorrhoid with eyebrows. Oh, not the old killer condom routine. I know that, sweetheart. I'm the one who banished them. Cut the kiss-ass crap.
You're talking to my guy all wrong. It's the wrong tone. Do it again, I'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron.
Okay, I don't want to give the impression that the movie's 100% comedically inept. There are some jokes that work, that they don't immediately ruin. The sign in the background promoting an anti-club club, yeah, that's kind of funny. The jocks are driven to the school in a limo and park in a spot that says basketball players only, that's a good bit of satire. Norm is trying everything he can to get into a room, only for the door to open as he charges at it. I'm a sucker for those kind of gags. And there's this part where it cuts between everyone screaming, but for different reasons. That I kind of like. I guess I can also give a credit that there are no poop jokes. There's a quick shot of someone leaving a bathroom stall with their fly down, but that's about it. Which is very surprising for a high school teen comedy, especially one made around this time. I don't know, should I be happy that they don't try to gross me out? Or is this just another indicator that they have no idea how to make a teen comedy? John Belushi, what do you think?
I'm a zit. Get it?
But you know what the movie does have a lot of? Sex jokes. So I guess they got that part down at least. And, like everything else, I hesitate to call these moments jokes. It's just titties! Titties exist! That's the joke! This movie has a lot of titties! Laugh! Laugh! Why aren't you laughing? Laugh! And like I said, this guy's playing a perverted video game, and at one point a guy is suffocated by a giant condom. And gee, I wonder what's happening in this scene.
And they never ever ate the eyeballs because that was really disgusting. And all of this led to the discovery and erection of the pyramids.
Erection sound. Funny.
I guess it's kind of creative that the movie's obligatory sex scene actually takes place in a sex ed classroom that's actually set up for a sex scene, but then the movie crosses the line. So this Mr. Armageddon villain I've mentioned a couple times, he barely does anything for most of the movie. For the first half, he's just dicking around with the other characters, sometimes killing them, sometimes creating monsters, but most of his scenes don't last more than 30 seconds. He says he'll create signs of the Earth's impending demise, but we see one and then never again. He's just content to sit around, sipping a sangria. But then we'll get scenes, again, clearly added in later, where he'll kidnap one of the female students, then proceed to molest her. And it's greatly suggested that he rapes and kills them. And through the second half of the movie, he tries to do the same to Candy. At several points, he will hypnotize her, touch her without consent, and clearly get ready to rape her. All while the goofy soundtrack is playing in the background. Look, I understand that women were more objectified in 80s media, but this? No. 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 No, 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 no!
No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No. No. No, no, no. No! Hell no!
This is wrong. This is 57 different varieties of wrong. We are watching young women being molested or straight up raped by a creepy old man, and the movie treats it like it's a comedic moment. Laugh! Cheer! Beat off to the gazongas of a screaming woman being stripped and forcibly plowed! Even for the 80s, I cannot imagine anyone with 2 functioning brain cells and even a fraction of good taste finding this funny. I've sat through movies where women are visibly tortured and raped, obvious fetish projects made just so someone connected with production had something to fill their wet dreams with, and even then, they treated these moments with the seriousness they deserve. They didn't play funny music over them. They didn't follow up the railing with 2 aliens sliding down a stair railing. Even the most exploitative of movies I've seen realized that rape is not funny. Ever. These are possibly the most tasteless, tone-deaf moments I've ever seen in a movie I've featured here. And the fact that I have to specify that there's more than one sickens me. You know, I've seen movies where kids are brutally murdered, where people are mutilated beyond recognition yet forced to live, and, well, other movies where women are molested. And this is the movie I couldn't finish in one sitting. Yeah, every 15 minutes, I just had to turn it off, get out of my seat, and walk away. Because between the obnoxious editing, the absence of any plot or point, and the horrible, horrible attempts at humor, I just had to take a break and remind myself that there's good in this world worth living for. I finished the movie, don't worry, I'm not pulling a Roger Ebert and reviewing something I couldn't sit through, but it took me hours. Hours and every ounce of restraint I had not to snap the disc and burn it in my oven. Go to hell, movie. Go to hell. Should I even bother with the rest of the review? I can't top that. For the rest of the video, you're just gonna keep thinking back to the fact that this movie thinks rape is funny. Alright, fine. Let's just quickly finish up. I'm amazed that anyone tied with this movie went on to have a career. I mean, most didn't. A lot of the actors, even those playing the main leads, mostly just did this movie, maybe 1 or 2 other things, then vanished off the face of the earth. But a couple names managed to find work after appearing in this burning trash fire. Diana Frank is a French actor who's appeared in French movies. David Marriott appeared in a number of B-grade action war movies, most of them written and directed by the legendary B-movie producer David A. Pryor. Troy Froman has been in over 60 movies and TV shows, including a recurring role as Ox in Saved by the Bell. David Block became casting director for movies like The 13th Floor, The Patriot, and the original American Godzilla movie, as well as the show Providence. Rick Floyd has worked as a director of PR for most major studios. And there's even prolific toy inventor David Furrer, who also holds the Guinness World Record for fastest backwards speaking, making him the reverse Micro Machines guy. But the most well-known name in this cast is probably Phil Fondacaro, a professional voice actor and short person performer, who's had major roles in The Black Cauldron, Troll, Willow, The Addams Family Reunion, and a lot of TV shows, including Roland the Leprechaun and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And he's probably the luckiest actor in the movie, as he plays the rated shoe monster, meaning his face will never have to be associated with this film. A fate he also avoided when he played Greaser Greg in the Garbage Pail Kids movie. A film I can't decide is better or worse than this flick. I don't even want to say how this movie ends. Oh, we're not topping the comedic rape scenes, but that doesn't mean the movie can't still come up with things so stupid my brain cells would rather commit mass suicide than even dwell for a second on what's being shown on screen. Do you really want to know how this movie ends? Do you really want to know? Okay, so This movie features aliens that come to Earth to enslave and or destroy the population. And the only way to defeat the aliens is to beat them in a game of basketball.
Come on and slam, and welcome to the town. Come on and slam, if you wanna jam.
I am not kidding. I am so not kidding. I wish I was kidding, but no, I could not even begin to kid about this. We actually got Space Jam before Space Jam was a thing. Someone else had the mindset to make a movie where an alien invasion is defeated in a sports game. And Space Jam is still the better movie. No comparison. Hell, I'd even take a new Legacy at this point. How does the movie arrive at this conclusion? I don't know. Norm just decides out of nowhere to risk the fate of the world on a basketball game, convinces the team to play, and tells Mr. Armageddon to play or he'll be miserable at him? I don't know. At this point, what explanation could they possibly give? I mean, the movie does kind of tease this ending by having Mr. Armageddon's prison be a basketball, but that doesn't play into anything else in the movie, so whatever. So it's a playoff between the school's team and Mr. Armageddon with the monsters he's created up to this point. And, you guessed it, they found a way to even ruin this ending. You know how the basketball scenes in Space Jam were the best parts of the movie, with some fun gags, great animation, and the trademark fast-paced Looney Tunes slapstick all throughout the match? Yeah, let's play some of that back-to-back with how it goes in Monster High.
Special delivery!
Technical foul, 13 red, unsportsmanlike conduct.
Nice kaboom, Wiley.
Another computerized field goal.
Yes!
Someone please bring a body bag to the scorekeeper's table.
An hour of chaotic, meaningless nonsense, and it's here, at the point you'd expect insane stunts and visuals, that the movie decides to slow to a crawl. I would say this is the final nail in the coffin for this movie, but yeah, the movie was dead and buried with that first rape scene. And once again, there's one joke they keep playing over and over again to hammer it in that they think it's a joke. The monsters kill or maim the human basketball players, and nobody reacts. Ha 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 ha! The Monty Python sketch about pudding playing tennis has more dignity than you. Oh, we also get a wrap up to the zombie preppy and melanoma's sleep deficiency, but I don't care. Do you care? I don't. But we do get the worst fourth wall joke I've seen in quite a while.
I think you got... Candace, I think you got... You know, I think this movie violence is just getting a little out of hand.
Oh my god. Anyway, Norm and Candy reprogram the living computer to shoot baskets for their team. Norm steps in, shoots the winning basket in an intentionally drawn-out will-it-won't-it scene that, okay, did get a slight chuckle out of me, and the day is saved. And if it sounds like I skipped over something, that is literally the last 20 minutes summed up in 2 sentences. Mr. Armageddon and his cronies are sent to the prison again, and Candy and Norm are the thing now. The end. I have no words. I am deeply, truly sorry I had to subject you to this movie. And if you have watched it to this point, you deserve a standing ovation. I just can't wrap my mind around anything this movie presents. What it confuses for comedy, what it thinks audience engagement looks like, what strange, grotesque, drug-induced hallucinations were responsible to think any idea presented in this movie made any logical sense. Even in the context of the movie's world. It's one of the most bizarre movies I've ever seen. And not good bizarre. Lazy, half-assed, we don't give a crap bizarre. I mean, the effects, costumes, and set designs are really good given what they had to work with, and clearly the crew wanted to make it look like a movie. But all other choices involved aren't just bad, they defy all sense or logic. It's almost like they intentionally sabotage themselves. Every time there was a joke, they threw something in to ruin it. Every time a plot thread began, they stopped writing it. And every time we started enjoying the cheesy fun of this world, well, surprise rape. I don't get it. I cannot begin to grasp the headspace that this movie emerged from. It is one of the most ridiculous comedies I have ever seen. And one of the worst. Is it the worst? Oh, no, not by a long shot. Not while Adam Sandler, Tyler Perry, Daniel Tosh, or the guys behind the Brickleberry trilogy are still getting work. But it's one of the most misguided, misdirected, messiest movies I've ever seen. And considering what I normally watch, yeah, wow. So, happy Halloween, everyone. Enjoy your candy, your costumes, and your horror films. And, oh yeah, don't watch this movie. Yeah, I usually end these critiques with a pun, but here, I got nothing. When it comes to live-action Monster High movies, I think you're better off watching what Mattel has to offer.
We do! Call someone! How? You haven't used your phone as a phone yet? I just thought it was for social media.
Then again, I've been wrong before. Hey there, you've reached the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please take a second to like, comment, and, if you're so willing, subscribe. It's how my videos get noticed, and it encourages me to keep making them. And if you'd like to be even more incredible, check out my Patreon. It's a measly $1 to be credited at the end of my review videos, and if you'd like to contribute more, well, there are higher tiers and extra rewards. Whatever you decide, stay awesome, keep watching, and I'll see you next time.